All right, LIV Golf is now facing the imminent cancellation of its big season finale in Michigan. In fact, evidence of this is the fact that grandstands have not even been built yet. This is something that traditionally takes months to accomplish, and we're only a few weeks out. On top of that, LIV has been recently hit with more bad news, losing its relationship with the Asian Tour, which was an important relegation and promotion part of LIV Golf, which is another reason why they got official world golf rankings in the first place. So the bad news continues to pour in, and it leaves us wondering, will LIV's latest survival plan work? Of course, it all hinges on them getting the funding they need, but what we're looking at now in this latest indication of what LIV might look like next year if they do continue, to me, Mike, is just a very watered down version of itself. But I guess, for LIV fans out there, something is better than nothing. So we're going to run through what that plan looks like and give some of our own predictions of what might happen. And of course, we got to talk about all this news with guys like Martin Kaymer saying he's only giving about a 5% chance of that Michigan finale working. I'm even seeing headlines now, Mike, of people saying that the last two events of the season may now be canceled.
Very could be, yeah.
With Indianapolis potentially on the chopping block as well, which it could be an utter, evidence of disaster for the league. So we've got quite a bit to get into. But first, we want to thank this week's sponsor, Titleist. And guys, nothing beats those magical driver days where everything feels effortless off the tee and you can just simply play. The new Titleist GTS driver is designed to give you more of them. GTS is built for speed, stability, and accuracy. But the best thing it gives golfers is more confidence over every drive. Who does not want that? I can tell you from firsthand experience that is exactly what I've been getting since getting fit. The GTS is a faster, more forgiving face, and they've got more fitting tools than ever before, which means this is a GTS setup that's perfect for every player. And if you want to unlock your own best driving with GTS, visit Titleist.com. Find a fitter near you, and you can enjoy more of those driver days this season, guys. That is the key. Those fittings are really where the rubber meets the road and really dialing these GTS in. We can speak from firsthand knowing and doing that. So, Mike, I think the big news that hit last week, and we saw this first reported on, it was an interview Today's Golfer had done with Martin Kaymer, talking about, I guess what had happened was Scott O'Neill had called in just the player captains for another update. And a lot of what people were speculating was saying that if it was just the captains, it probably wasn't anything too significant of news, as far as what they could tell them.
Sure.
We saw, and we talked about this extensively on the podcast last week, talking about John Rahm and some of his statements, which were a little bit cryptic. But a lot of what we're hearing is that a lot of the players, they just don't know. They just don't have answers for what are happening. But this is kind of like the clearest news we've had yet of another significant development in what seems to be, and again, speaking just objectively here, it just looks like an unraveling of the league.
No, it definitely does. And I watched a lot of London this week because it was on when I got up. The time was perfect. It was morning golf. It was right there. To see these guys fresh off the Open. Herbert, by the way, that guy's like electric. He found something.
Yeah,
no
doubt.
Incredible to watch. And as I'm watching it, I'm seeing Scott O'Neill hug the guys on the first tee. I'm looking at the reporters, the broadcasters like Faraday, and I'm thinking like, are all these guys nervous? Like they just don't have a job? Like no one here has a job anymore soon?
Yeah.
Like what is going through their head? And how is this league going to keep going? Like I'm looking at the grandstands and like what goes into putting an event together. We've talked about the $100 million a month, all that stuff. And I know we're going to talk about this later on and throughout this show, but I can't see it surviving.
I will say, it kind of indicates like what you're saying is that they are doing a good job of at least pretending it's not falling apart in the background.
That's it. Yeah.
Right? Putting on that show and trying to keep up a good face and keep it continuing. But like I said, all this evidence leads towards a major problem. So to put in the context, let's just talk about this potential of that final event being canceled. First of all, this is not that far into the future. This is August 27th through the 30th. And we'll talk more about like some of the infrastructure, because to me, that's the clearest indication. That goes beyond rumor mill for me. But it is no doubt LIV's probably biggest draw of the season. It's a $40 million event. Yeah. I think that's part of what the problem is. If you're burning through and losing money with no funding on the back end, to have another $40 million go out could be a major problem. But if you look at the remaining schedule, there's not much there. You've got New York, August 6th through the 9th. Then you've got Indianapolis, 20th through the 23rd. And like I said, I'm already starting to see some news outlets report about the possible cancellation of that event as well. Again, remains to be seen. That is something that we don't have too much information on yet. I'm actually surprised if anyone has done a check-in on whether the infrastructure is there for that event, because that's even closer. I haven't heard on that one.
It's nuts.
Everything seems to be going towards the finale in Michigan.
And a lot of the announcers they kept hyping up the story, and this is probably the story they want to keep building, is the season-long race. Is it Rahm? Is it Bryson going to catch him? Like, they keep hyping it. Like, is there going to be an end? There has to be. They're not just going to flip this next one in New York and say, all right, guys, this is going to be the season ender. They can't do that. So I just don't know what they're going to do.
There are some people who are saying Indianapolis may become. They may
that's
pivot.
the next one after?
And just actually move everything up. But
tough look, though.
Before we get into Martin Kaymer's some of his quotes on it, one thing again I got to say that this is why if I'm a betting man, I'm betting that Michigan is not happening. Okay. So this is reported on by Yahoo Sports. They said there has been no infrastructure build out at the Cardinal at St. John's Resort as of Wednesday night. That was last week. He said, with a Detroit News reporter spotting no hospitality suites on the 18th hole, no stage for the post-round concerts and championship celebration, no player walking bridge across the signature pond, no visible signage, nothing to suggest a significant golf tournament will be played here in 5 weeks from Thursday. And for context, build out for golf tournaments of this magnitude typically takes multiple months. To me, that's the writing on the wall. Yeah. Michigan's not happening.
No, it doesn't sound like it. That sounds pretty eerie. There's nothing built there.
Right.
And it's a month away.
Right. To me, then, it's like, even if by some crazy miracle you get the funding, you can only, we've been there. We've seen them, before events on the PGA Tour and majors and building out that the infrastructure. It's a significant thing. It takes months and months to do. If it's not there, it's not happening.
It's not. You know what's so crazy too? Like and it may sound like, the things I say about LIV is like I'm rooting against it, but I'm quietly rooting for them. Like, I wanted this new idea to succeed. The whole startup, again, watching it on TV and seeing like the team standings and, the teams the Australian team who won the other day, and Herbert won so much money, but like, I'm still into it. And I'm like quietly rooting for it. But in my head saying I'm rooting for this, but I know it's not going to succeed.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you got to separate reality. And that's where we can, as much as like all the news outlets get going and we can read those quotes and the speculation like we're hearing from Kaymer without actual validation yet, which validation will be coming soon on this. We'll tell you more of that in a second. Yep. But there are certain things that are undeniable. If it's true that you have boots on the ground, that there's no infrastructure built yet, an event there's just not happening.
Yeah, it's not.
Let's just be real. So let's get to that interview. So this is an interview that Today's Golfer had done with Martin Kaymer, and they asked him about that event, or actually the last two events. And he said, I know that Indianapolis most likely is happening. Michigan, highly unlikely. So there too, like I said, I can't read too much in the rumor mills yet on whether Michigan will also go. I'm sorry, Indianapolis will also go, but he's saying it right there, what I think we all know. In fact, in that interview, Kaymer gave it a 5% chance of happening.
Wow.
At Michigan. So he goes on, a little bit deeper into the interview. He said, of course, we are disappointed. I heard yesterday, actually, on the Golf Channel, that there were talks that Indianapolis could become a team event instead of Michigan. That we don't know. I think that would be a shame that we get reduced even more individual tournaments. And he went on to say, we need to be honest. This whole season is a bit of and he kind of stops there and he says, there was so much happening. Yeah, canceled New Orleans, canceled most likely the last event. So I think it's important to just finish the season and hopefully we'll have a plan for 2027.
Hopefully.
Man, does that not sound good?
It doesn't sound good.
And even him stopping there saying this whole season's been a bit of what was the word he wanted to use there? What frustrated word? And this is a team captain. I think the word that he probably wanted to use was either that or disappointment, right? It's like none of these guys wanted this. And what's so crazy, if you look back on it, I think there'll be studies on how fast this unraveling happened.
Yeah.
You know, this is a league that appeared to have indefinite funding as early as January and February of this year.
Right.
It came down like out of the blue when LIV just said, you know, I'm sorry, they're cutting all funding.
Yeah, totally.
So according to the report, so we're going to continue to watch this closely, a final decision on whether LIV is going to pull the plug on Michigan is set to be announced this week. I've heard rumors of Tuesday. I've heard rumors of Thursday. Regardless, at some point, they're going to have to give an answer for that. And really, just kind of ending that with what Kaymer had said, asked again, they're trying to ask these guys, what does the future hold for LIV? You know, just somebody say it. And a lot of them are saying, like, it all comes down to the investors. He said, as you know, speaking of Scott O'Neill and the higher ups at LIV, he said, they are working their arses off to get a deal. But in the end, if those investors decide to pull out, then we don't play golf next year on LIV Golf. And if they decide to do it, then we have a chance. So he's saying it right there. It all boils down to whether they're getting the investment. And I've been saying week in and week out, you know, behind the scenes, Scott O'Neill is probably not sleeping in meeting to meeting just to see who he can get to buy into this thing.
And you know what's so crazy? It's not just like, you know, we thought of the idea of like naming, like getting a sponsorship for each tournament. That wouldn't even solve the problem because you get $25 million from a Wells Fargo, for example, right? You still need another $100 million to put up the grandstands and run it. So you still need the investor. Like, I don't know.
They need people to invest in the league itself. They need a way to replace, because this league was built on the foundation of the huge finances that you got from the PIF. And without that done, even with the ways, we're going to talk in a second about this survival plan and this possible restructuring, even with that, you can change the league a ton. But then at what point does it become something it was never intended to be and something completely different? At what point if you water it down so much, you know, at that point, does it lose its soul of what it was trying to be in the first place?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But I will tell you, if Scott O'Neill can pull this out and LIV becomes big, then, you know, he's gonna be deserving of a lot of credit.
It's magician level.
Yes.
You know, pulling that rabbit out of that hat.
Yes.
So, and we're at obviously in the 11th hour at this point. You know, there's not much time left. There's 3 events now, 2 possibly events left in the season. There's not a lot.
It's sad to say there's maybe 2 possibly events ever.
Potentially.
At
any time you're watching a LIV event, it could be the
last one. I know. And that's no way to run the league. That's tough.
It's not. Not for the players, not for the fans, not for anybody. Yeah. And I'll hit you with this too. There was one more bit of really bad news for LIV. And again, this is where it just seems to kind of be pouring on. Just last week, the Asian Tour announced that they were going to be entering into a partnership with the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour through 2029. And what this does is it effectively ends the relationship with LIV. And for a little bit of background, LIV was, you know, Asian Tour was a very important feeder tour for LIV. It was a very important part of the promotion and relegation. It gave LIV players another place to play in order to accrue official World Golf Rankings point. And further for context, Golf Digest put it well. They said the Asian Tour had partnered with LIV in 2021 before the league's launch in 2022, when it created a lucrative group of tournaments called the International Series, which LIV golfers frequently teed up in. The series was central to the promotion and relegation element of LIV Golf, including the top 2 on its order of merit being promoted to LIV for the 2026 season. And this is something we covered extensively when we talked about LIV's journey to get official World Golf Rankings. They needed things like this, and players need these other vehicles. But now to lose that, and I can't help but think when I see all these reports of players taking meetings with the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour behind the scenes looking for pathways back, I think it's the same thing with, like, you know, the Asian Tours. They're seeing, if we see the writings on the wall, this league's going to be gone tomorrow, we better hustle up and make an arrangement with somebody else.
No doubt.
And the PGA Tour and DP World Tour are just sitting there ready to soak it in.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's more tough news. So I want to get into this question of, like, what is this strategy going for first? But, you know, one thing we love to do here every week is our Fletcher question of the week. And it's presented by Fletcher, which is a clean, additive-free tequila made from 100% blue agave. If you haven't tried it, you're seriously missing out. I can tell you this was past weekend, Mike. I made myself a nice margarita with that Blanco, sat by the pool. just
good weekend
refreshing. It's the perfect summer drink, that's for sure. But the question I have for you guys, something we pose every week, is the question for you guys. Make sure you drop your answers down in the comments below. We love reading them. And this is, if you could wave a magic wand, let's say you were given complete control of professional golf for one day, what is the one change you would make? And we're keeping this wide open, not just LIV, PGA Tour, anywhere. If you could make one change, would it be? You know, it's a couple of things that come to my mind. One would be canceling the very unpopular golf ball potential rollback, which we're seeing more and more indications that might happen. We'll keep a close eye on that. Maybe a different season structure. Some people talk about shortening the season a little bit, condensing it, but make yourself a kind of like the head honcho for a minute and let us know what your own answer would be to that. So let's pause there. Let's do a quick word from our sponsors. Then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what LIV's kind of strategy going forward looks like it's going to be for their potential if they're going to survive.
All right, if you guys been listening to the show for a while, you probably know that we're FootJoy guys. We've been wearing FootJoy for almost a decade, believe it or not.
Yeah,
not longer. I mean, we've been wearing shoes even before getting into the golf.
As long as I've been playing golf.
Absolutely, and they just keep getting better and better. And lately, I know we just took a trip to Virginia. We did a whole series down there, and we were rocking some nice prints. Like they are outdoing themselves. They're coming out with some really nice new shirts and really
collaborations too. I got the Fair Harbor on today.
There's the Fair Harbor on right there. Even from some cool pink colors that I have here. I love what they're doing with their tops, and I talk like a million times I know about their shoes, which we all know are amazing, but you got to check everything else that they have. And even their outerwears, their rain jackets, they're the best in the business for a reason. So run over to footjoy.com. You might have a trip coming up. You might have a few golf rounds in the next month or so. If you're lacking in any departments, if you need a refresher on gloves, these are the guys for you. So go to footjoy.com and guys, get to shopping today. All right, so whether it be like early tee times, travel golf, or just like walking a lot of golf, walking 36 holes, which we do sometimes, if you're serious about getting better, you have to take sleep more seriously for, as an important part of your equipment.
And your whole life, like beyond golf now. Like, I feel like if I don't get a good night's sleep, like everything suffers.
100%. I mean, just from like picking up your kids or picking up something on the floor, like you need sleep to do all those things and just function. So look, our friends at Lagoon Sleep, they figured it out. They make pillows that are easily the best in the business, and we can attest firsthand. We ended up in their pillows after their 2-minute sleep quiz, which was great. I ended up with this polar bear pillow, which is like perfect for me as a side sleeper who likes like that stiff feel. And Frank, you've got that otter, which is good for you, for your sleep pattern. So they're fit for you, just like the same way we get fit for our golf equipment, fit for our tuxedos and suits. You can now get fit for a pillow, and believe me, it is working for me. So if you're struggling with neck pain or even just staying asleep, check out Lagoon Sleep. Go to lagoonsleep.com/golficity. Take that 2-minute sleep quiz and find your match. And don't forget about the coupon code. Save 15% off your first purchase with code Golficity.
All right, so now let's talk about LIV's survival plan, which full well knowing that it all hinges upon them getting funding. But there's a lot of different variations of that. They know they need a certain minimum amount of funding in order to survive at all. But like, even if they do meet that minimum, maybe there are just some adjustments that they can make to the league. And when I say this, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the last thing I would want to see is just like a watered down version of it. But on the same token, sometimes you gotta weather the storm, and if what they need to do, if at their core, if LIV believes that this is something that has the potential to catch on in the long term. We talk about a lot about like the F1 model and stuff like that. And like, these things don't catch on in a heartbeat. They take time. And I think LIV originally very much thought that what would purchase that time for them was the deep pockets of the PIF. They probably were thinking, hey, it might take 5 to 10 years for this to catch on, but once it does, then it becomes its own animal. Like it just kind of a snowball rolling down the hill.
Right.
But you got to first get that momentum going. So I think part of this survival strategy might be like, if we need to limp through a few years, but on the same token, like, is a watered down product going to really grasp it? So I want to run through this potential survival plan, and then I want to do a little fun game with you called buying or selling. You tell me, I'm gonna give you a couple different potential predictions. You tell me whether you're buying it or selling.
I love that. And when you say watered down, you thinking like they're shifting to a muni and serving dogs and like what? No concerts, no music, like no grandstands.
But potentially part of that.
Okay.
I think you're going to see a reduction in a lot of the big ticket things. Such as potentially hiring big name performers to perform a concert.
Yep.
But the big one is things like purses, field.
Purses.
So
sure.
this one, again, this recent plan, this is reported on by Today's Golfer, and they gave a potential look at what this might look like. Now, keep in mind, a lot of this is behind the scenes reporting that's going on. There's a lot of players and people involved who don't know. As we said before, some of them do not know what's really happening behind the scenes. There's others who can't reveal it. We talked about Jon Rahm last week, that kind of cryptic answers where he kind of said he knew what was going on but couldn't share it with reporters yet. So that's where this kind of comes from. Sometimes guys get a little bit of information on the side. They hear from a caddy, something like that. So this is what we're seeing so far. According to Today's Golfer, they said that 2027 may look like a stripped down version of LIV, with first and foremost them having 10 core events, each one carrying a $10 million prize.
Okay.
That is 1/3 of what the prize looks like right now. So potentially a way to make it more attractive to investors is to reduce the cost, obviously, like any business.
Smart.
One way to do that will be to drop those massive payouts.
So guys are going to play for less money right out of the gate, or maybe the same money, but maybe last place is going to take $100,000 check home or something. Maybe.
Well, last place. There's where the big problem's coming in.
Yeah.
So another potential cost cutting area is they're saying that there's the potential for there to be no payouts for what they're calling the last dozen or so players on the leaderboard. And for context, as it stands right now, well, what's that effectively? A cut.
It's a cut.
If you're there playing the weekend for nothing, you are
but
effectively cut.
That's it's
for your team.
That's what's keeping you in it, because otherwise, why else are they?
And you're not knowingly playing for nothing. You don't know you're going to be in last place until the last putt drops.
That's true.
Right? But what they're saying is, as it stands right now in LIV, and this has been another area where the costs have inflated. We've talked about costing $100 million a month for the league to run. Well, there's a lot of money that goes out for every tournament. Right now, the last 11 players on the leaderboard at LIV each take home $50,000. That's not something you see like on a cut based.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like on the PGA Tour, after Friday, half the field is cut and they walk home with nothing. Now the no cut events that we see on the tour, everybody's making something, but
True.
It's a little different.
So what was the savings number by cutting down? Did you give me that?
So they would cut out, right now they're spending $50,000 per player for the last 11 players. So
it's just like almost like 600,000.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than $500,000 in savings there. Again, just trying to cut corners, I think, wherever they can.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, what does that do? It makes the league vastly less attractive to premier players. Like these guys, for as much as we heard every time somebody would sign a deal with LIV, Jon Rahm, whoever it may be, they would inevitably give what was probably a pre-written speech about the reasons they were going was, to grow the game or play more internationally, whatever. At the end of the day, we know the reasons they went. There was big money. It was big money. You're a top tier elite player. You deserve.
I was hoping at some point someone was going to say that at that point.
Yeah, I was hoping someone would just be honest.
Like, guys, they paid me a bag. Let's not lie. I took it. Let's go.
A guy like Jon Rahm. Yeah, I got $500 million, guys. That's why I'm going.
Yep. But
here, obviously, it becomes far more difficult to attract and retain talent. We talk before all this, hit the fan with PIF pulling out. We were talking about Bryson negotiating a $500 million deal. That's out. So what retains these guys? So according to this new survival plan, you're going to see an even increased equity stake in the league for the top players that they want to retain.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as attractive as that can be, and we look at even what the PGA Tour is doing with equity stakes, 50% of nothing is nothing. Right? Like if we're constantly, if I'm putting myself in the shoes of a player who's negotiating whether I'm going to stay in this new reduced league, I got to, right now, the way that this is going, where it just seems like flying by the seat of your pants, where like at any time they could just pull the plug on an event or the entire league.
I know.
Equity becomes a whole lot less attractive to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a tough sell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's clearly not a full fleshed out, or we're not aware of all the moving parts of this survival plan, but it looks like the crust of it will be less events, less payout for each of those events, less guys, taking money on that leaderboard, even guys coming home with nothing, which is something that LIV kind of, I think, always wanted to avoid.
Yeah.
They wanted this idea of contracted players, and they were going to be there and they're going to get something for their time. And then this possibility of increased equity for the guys that they want to retain. To me, none of that is earth shattering. None of that would blow me away as a potential person who's investing their time in the league. And again, it's just another indication to me that I think the league's in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, does LIV have like a business valuation or a worth? Has anyone put that number out there? Does anyone know what it's worth?
I would imagine that there's some sort of number they're floating to potential investors, but
It's
being
just kept
privately
quiet.
held and
Yeah.
stuff like that, there's no one who's independently evaluated
There's
that.
not something like Bryson and Rahm will team up and buy the league and make it there. You know what I mean?
Well, that's another thing. How much of the worth is tied to the guys who are there?
Right.
And with very uncommittal responses from guys like Bryson and Rahm, I'm a potential investor. I'm like, those guys aren't there. What do we have?
Right.
Right. So now let's play our little game. I'm going to give you a statement, a prediction, something like that, and you're going to tell me whether you're buying or selling it.
Okay.
Okay. Very simple. So the first one is the statement that LIV ultimately survives in some form. Are you buying or selling that statement?
I want to buy it. Like I'm there as a consumer for it.
Yeah.
But I'm selling it.
Yeah. You don't think
it's just too rich. It's too expensive. Too many question marks. And I don't know. I'd like to meet the investor who agrees to bail this thing out.
Right.
Just get into their brain and wonder why.
I think with the piling of the bad news, and seemingly every time I look at it on Twitter or whatever, if you look at the momentum and the direction, I haven't seen even a gem of hope of good news for LIV.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to investors who are putting their, for us, we're fans, what are we invested? We're invested in our time to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are invested with their wallets. And I just don't see it potentially happening.
Right.
I again, as much as I would love to see them, continue in some form, because I think that team golf, which we'll talk about in a second, lives or dies with the league. And I do like the idea of team golf working. If someone can make it work, I got to sell too. I just don't think I don't think you see a LIV Golf continuing in 27.
Is there a way they could just do team golf?
I mean,
take the individual aspect out of it?
I mean, you still need enough money to run the league. At the end of the day, they have to have the tournaments, no matter what the structure is. So, second statement I have for you. The PGA Tour is now stronger today because LIV existed. Buying or selling?
Buying. 100%. Way stronger. Like I said in the last show, though, it got the combination of LIV and the COVID golf boom. Yep. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. And guys like Rory and Scotty and maintain the healthiness, the health factor of the league. Like they took it out of a state where I think people were kind of angry with the tour. There was a lot of fans that didn't like the PGA Tour, I think, right at the beginning when LIV started. Yeah. I don't know. That there was a big black eye at some point, but I think now everyone shifted and it's like the golden child, the PGA Tour again.
Yeah. I think I'm buying that the PGA Tour is stronger, but it's not without some bruises that I think will take some time.
Yeah,
I think that there are some people who will still remain, and understandably so, will remain a little bit like, I'm trying to think of what the word is, but like a little upset with the league for how they handled LIV when they first came out, really trying to throw their weight around strong arming the league and things like that. And you could argue whether their tactics worked in the end or not, but I think there was a lot of things that the PGA Tour did that people can disagree with. I even just see the way they've handled guys like Wesley Bryant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That will leave a little bit of a black eye on what the league did, but ultimately I think they'll come out of this stronger. I think they will learn from LIV. We've talked about it before. I think they will have some takeaways in the places that the tour will go, and serving some markets that would not have been as uncovered if it weren't for LIV. So I do think that they're stronger because of it.
No doubt.
Next one I have for you is golf fans care more about individual players than leagues or tours. Do you believe that one?
Yeah, I do. I mean, if this is similar, if this makes sense, is like, look at Scotty Scheffler, late addition to the 3M, ticket sales went through the roof. Mm-hmm. Like it's a no-name event in Minnesota. Yeah. Scotty shows up, all of a sudden you got a golf event. So I think they care more about the players. I mean, I don't think the event, the league is a league. I mean, that's PGA Tour no matter what, for that example. But events, I don't think it matters. I think they want the players. Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think that's where the fandom lives. It's not, yes, there were people who took sides in the beginning with PGA Tour and LIV, and I think for all different reasons, but it's not nobody out there wearing a PGA Tour hat. Like, John was a big fan of the PGA Tour.
Right.
I think they're happy when their players are playing on their preferred tour. But at the end of the day, I think another thing that we learned from this experiment is the fact that they're fans of players. They believe in the players more than they believe in the tours. And I think they knew this. Like, guys like LIV knew this. They said, like, we had to bring in the players and their fans in order to make this league exist.
To keep in mind that, like, people in their 80s today, 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, like, the PGA Tour was our tour for decades. Like, that's the one that we're into.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe someone in their, like, teens, like, who doesn't know the Arnold Palmer stories or the Tiger Woods stories, and LIV was the first thing they were introduced to. I get that, but PGA Tour for me just, like, trumps everything.
Yeah.
As far as tour-wise in the world of golf.
Yeah, well, and if it plays out the way you think it is, that's going to continue that way. Here's another one for you. Buy or sell this. The PGA Tour should welcome back every LIV player with no penalties. Assuming LIV goes and there's no LIV in 2027.
That's a tough one. I'd love for them to just welcome them back, not wait like probationary periods. But I get it. They took a check. They took the money. Other guys stayed faithful and didn't. So, like, there's got to be something there to show that, like, you weren't loyal. Yeah. So, like, even it's like this, what they're doing with Patrick Reed, I think that's fair enough. Just letting him in without anything might be a little tough look.
Yeah, I think letting them in without any penalties or otherwise would be a signal that we're putting all this behind us and we don't want to talk about this
anymore. Which would be great.
I understand that, but I think that there's just too many sour grapes behind the scenes on the PGA Tour side of the guys who didn't take the money, who didn't jump to LIV, who would be, bug in the ear of the higher ups is saying they can't come back that way. Now, that being said, we've talked about this before on the podcast. Everyone benefit. Everyone's making more money because of LIV. So I don't know how much water that argument holds anymore, but I do think that if there should be anything, I'm kind of selling this one because I think there should be a clear path back for LIV players. There should be, it shouldn't be a lifetime ban by any means.
It shouldn't be.
But there's got to be something there that gives them a path back, but a little bit of a waiting game to give a little bit more breathing room to the guys who stayed.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I think golf needs, ultimately every sport needs this, but I think golf needs a little more of these, like, beefs. And when Rory was like, I'm particularly not fond of Bryson, everyone, when he said that about him at the Open, then you're like, all right, these two hate each other.
Right.
Now I want to see the two of them go heads up at the RBC Heritage, at the Genesis. No, I got to wait 4 times to see this happen.
Yeah.
And one Ryder Cup every other year. Now I want to see it more.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, like, that's why I want these guys to come. I want them to come back with open arms so we could just get back to great.
Right.
Show, but it's probably not the right way.
Heroes and villains. The story, it worked forever. Last one I have for you. This is a good one. Are you buying or selling the idea that if LIV fails, there's still a future for team golf?
Man. I think I don't know. I mean, like, can like PGA Tour quickly come up with a team event, put it on the schedule, and it'll work? Probably.
Yeah.
They've done that with match play. If they had a year in advance and say we're going to do like 4-man team squads over in Arizona for whatever, they could, but I just think, like, without if LIV fails, I think a whole new league would have to start up for that again and be through the same whole hamster wheel.
I think this, as much as on paper the idea is great, I think this was evidence that LIV was ultimately the evidence that there's not a huge appetite from fans for team golf on a professional level. That being said, I still think there are ways that team golf captivates us. There's no doubt that we have the President's Cup coming up.
Yep.
We have, the Ryder Cup every other year. I think about even like the teams that are like the NCAA and college golf, and you watch that. And I think that's where that'll continue to live. Like, even, you could argue the Olympics, to a certain extent. So I think the way even the World Cup captivated everyone here, in the States. Like, it shows me that there's an element for these guys playing together as a team, whether that be supporting their college, their nation, whatever it may be. there's an appetite for it, but on a week-to-week basis, I just don't think. I think it's kind of a failed experiment. Golf is at its core, it's a very individual sport, and I think there's just too many moving parts to make that work. Like who's on whose team, drafting, this, that, and the other thing. I'm selling the idea. I don't think that the PGA Tour will ever implement a team element. I think if anything would be maybe over the years the production of more one-off events where guys team up for that. You know, I could see that being cool. I mean, you can even argue there's an element of it in TGL now.
TGL's team, Olympics is team, but it's every 4 years.
Yeah.
And I love like 4 guys from this country, 4 guys from this country, 4 guys, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, look at all the hype of the World Cup. Like imagine they could figure something like that for World Golf. They almost do every 4 years.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's your Ryder Cups and your President's Cups. And I think they have a place, but they're there just as its own pillars, and it's not a week in and week out thing. I would even argue, unless it turns something around, it's not only LIV that's evidence of it, but the TGL's own struggles. You know, we all know, like, as much as I enjoy watching the TGL, I'd love for it to stick around because I like that bonus golf. The team aspect of that, and as we've seen with ratings, it's not caught on. I don't see a lot of people wearing team supporting hats and shirts and stuff like that. It's just not catching on yet. So I'd have hard pressed to think that it'll ever be a really big thing in professional golf. But I still, like I said, I enjoy watching team events.
I hear
Most of those are international events.
A little side note, maybe we could put this in the next episode, just do a segment on rating. I don't know if you dug into the new Will Ferrell show, Hawk.
I haven't watched it yet. I've been putting it on there. I'm going to binge it at some point.
I watched the first episode and I got my thoughts on it. Some of you might not agree with me, but maybe we can talk about it on another show, and hopefully you'll watch an episode by then.
Yeah.
And just see if you think this thing's going to make it.
Okay.
All
We're going to have to dig into that
one.
So that's everything we have for you guys. Make sure you guys subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and we'll see you in the next one.